Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After we run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Hopefully we have a lot of questions on training camp by the time you guys are listening to this. I think we're going into the fourth day of training camp, and we're going to be recapping all of that. We've got some rumors about maybe possibly Yannick Ngakoue being traded to the Dolphins. Hopefully we'll have news about that tomorrow. So we got a lot to talk about today. A lot to talk about. So let's get into this first news story. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors, and it's concerning Preston Williams and Xavier Howard. Okay, so this is obviously concerning maybe the timetable when X returns. So X does not, so this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Xavier Howard does not figure to see much practice time before week 1. This makes the standout corner's availability for the Dolphins opener against the Patriots uncertain. So we talked about this a lot on previous episodes. So this is unfortunate. I mean, you kind of forget how close to the season we are. And then you look up and, we're only like a few weeks away. And X hasn't even really practiced with the team. So it kind of sucks. Now that we're getting closer, reading this news, I'm way more doubtful than I was before about him starting week 1, which is unfortunate. But there is a silver lining to this, and I don't think I'll just attach it to this news story. From things that we've heard from like Omar Kelly and some of the beat writers that can actually participate in the training camp practices and view things, from tweets and various other sources from these people, we've heard that Noah Igbinoghene has been starting opposite of Byron Jones, and he's actually been doing a very good job of that on the outside corner position, which is really good news. So even though maybe X doesn't, and that brings into question a whole lot of other things, and who's going to play free safety, and I'm sure we'll have that covered very, very soon in the next few days, if not like a week from now. We'll get a pretty good idea of who's starting where. But I think that's good news that Igbinoghene is doing so well opposite Byron, and he's been the standout player so far from the draft class, which did not expect that, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. Did not expect that. It's good news, obviously. He's around 6 feet tall. He's like 5'11". So this isn't like, I think I compared him a little bit to Bobby McCain sometimes, where we're not really sure how well, size, stuff of that nature. But he is a bigger dude. He's a physical corner. Some of the things that we've seen from him in college that he struggled with is maybe being a little bit too physical at times. But it's good to hear that he's doing well opposite Byron Jones. And it sucks that we're not going to see X and Byron together, at least right away, which is unfortunate. So kind of a bittersweet news story there. And this next news story is concerning Preston Williams. Preston Williams is on a limited, he's on like a very slow burn in terms of they're limiting his snaps. They're bringing him along very slowly. Preston Williams, the Dolphins are easing their undrafted, former undrafted rookies' success from, they're easing him in. I don't even know why it's written that way. It's very confusing. So they're easing him back since his ACL tear, adding that Williams' week 1 status is in doubt. Okay, so Williams went down in week 8 last season, ending a strong start to his career. So let me reread that because I kind of jumbled that up a little bit. Williams, coming off the ACL tear, this is written terribly, by the way, coming off the ACL tear, not expected to start week 1, although he is getting a lot of training camp snaps, but they just really want to bring him along slowly, which is weird because he is getting first-team reps from what I've seen, and even second-team reps. But he's getting limited amount of those, but he's doubtful to start week 1. So there's a lot there. I don't believe that. I think he's going to start week 1. Just from the stuff that I've seen of him. Literally they've posted videos, multiple. They posted 2 videos that I know of Preston Williams catching one-handed passes in the red zone. So I don't think this is as severe, obviously, as X. And I don't know. I just feel like I would expect him to start week 1 if I had to bet. We still have, a good amount of time before now in the season. Not to mention practice leading up to the Patriots. I feel like he's going to start week 1, if I had to guess, from what we've seen. I mean, he's getting reps against Igbinoghene, for what we've heard of, and Igbinoghene's mainly covering Preston Williams in practice. So he's playing against the first team defense. So I don't see that happening if I had to bet. I feel like that's a little too negative. So let's move on to the next news story, and this comes from Pro Football Rumors as well. Dolphins to release safety Adrian Colbert. So really, we don't have to go into this. This is a little surprising for depth, but I mean, if you think about it, they signed Fedulum and all these other guys, and obviously drafted Brandon Jones. They've got good safety depth. I think they still have Stephen Parker on the roster. I'm not completely sure about that. So they have good guys there. They don't. This isn't a huge blow. He played okay when that team was just a bunch of ragtag guys off the street. He didn't play terrible. This is the saddest news of the day, and I'm sure, everybody knows about this by now, but this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins' Vince Biegel has torn his Achilles. The Dolphins are to be without a key defensive role player this season. Linebacker Vince Biegel suffered an Achilles tendon tear Tuesday. And that's really it. I think he had 13 quarterback hits. 13 quarterback hits last year. He started 10 games for the Dolphins last year. Obviously, we traded for him from the New Orleans Saints. This would be a bigger blow if the Dolphins didn't do things to, add talent and depth and competition to those positions. Weaver, Van Noy, you still got McMillan. Aguavin is still on the team. All of those guys have played on the outside before at that outside linebacker position. Now, something that Vince did that they couldn't do is obviously put his hand in the dirt in like a 4-3. Either that or you're going maybe a dollar package, or you want to add more secondary to the lineup. Maybe if you go 3 down linemen, Vince was usually the one that was in there still. So, and again, I don't think he would have been this year though. I think if we do go 3 down linemen in some of those situations, I feel like you're going to see mainly like Lawson, Agba, and maybe you have in the middle Wilkins or something along those lines. I don't think Biegel would have even been a part of that. Plus, you add the whole Weaver situation. He adds great pass rush ability off the edge, even though he is a rookie. So the Dolphins did a good job of just adding talented people to those positions. I don't think this is that big of a deal. And I don't want to sound like I don't like Vince Biegel. I do like Vince Biegel. I think he's a good player. But even like you think about Van Ginkel, who we drafted not only a year ago, who only played like I think 4 games at the end of last year, and he started like 2 of them. And he played well against the Bengals and Patriots. So they have a lot of depth there. They have a lot of young talent there that needs to get playing time. And I feel like this isn't the end of the world. I will say that. I don't want to, minimize someone just losing their entire year, especially someone like Vince Biegel, who was coming off such a promising season, had the highest motor out of any Dolphin probably since Jarvis on the roster, especially on defense. Was active in the run, run fits, active in pass rush, all that stuff. He was disciplined. He was the only one that was really making plays on a consistent basis, that you would hear their name, other than like Jerome Baker, I would say. And I'm trying to think of someone else. I think they're, who is consistent like him. I feel like him and I think Jerome were probably some of the standouts from that unit. So it is unfortunate. We would have liked to have seen what he could have done and built off of it. It sucks, Anytime someone loses a year, and especially someone this young and promising, it's unfortunate. He's had an interesting career up to this point. He finally got an opportunity to show what he had, and he showed it well. And it would have been fun to see what he would have done on a revamped, more talented defense. It would have been interesting to see. He's a very versatile player, too. You can drop him back in coverage. He can rush, like I said, with a hand in the dirt. He could be an outside linebacker. I think he could even play inside linebacker. He's a very good athlete. So, it's, you lose a very versatile and talented player. It's never a good thing. But I do think the Dolphins do have people in place that can carry the load. So, let's get into training camp, ladies and gentlemen. some training camp recap. This should be fun. There's a lot of conflicting reports on one player in particular, which I want to get into because I think it's weird. But let's get into day one. And so these are some of the highlights. These are just highlights from each from day 1 through day 3 of training camp. And this comes from Cameron Wolf of ESPN. So one of the highlights was a beautiful deep ball from Josh Rosen to Jakeem Grant for a touchdown in team drills. We've been hearing a lot of good things about Rosen, and this is one of the things that we've heard, that, he's looked very good in training camp so far, which is good. And I've heard some things in response to this, this makes the Dolphins' ability to trade him and get value from him even better. And I'm like, why is that the thought process? If you have a quarterback that's balling out, we're talking about our franchise, by the way, okay? If you have a quarterback that is, first of all, I don't care where you were drafted or how you got here. If you're a franchise quarterback, I'll take it any way I can get it. The fact that he's balling out, and hey, who knows, might compete for the starting job. And the fact that he's having a good training camp up to this point, maybe the talks of trades are just stupid. In my opinion, it's just a weird way of looking at it. I think you have to keep him around the entire year, and just to see where things go, in my opinion. And it's good to hear that he's having a good training camp, because last year, you got to think about it, the man was traded here. He was getting thoroughly beat out by Ryan Fitzpatrick the entire time. It's nice to hear that he was in year 2. He's doing well. The second highlight of day 1, a few lovely deep balls from Ryan Fitzpatrick to Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, and Jakeem Grant. So it's nice to see those guys continue their success. It's nice to hear that Jakeem Grant's having a good training camp so far. I think that's one of the big takeaways that I take away from this is, they're playing him mostly on the outside, at least from what I've seen. And he's doing very well at that position, and that's great news. It's good news that those 3 are clicking too, because especially the first 2 coming off of a really good season. It's nice to see that they're continuing that momentum. Eric Rowe forced a fumble on Kalen Ballage. Yeah, this is something that we've heard so far in training camp, that Kalen Ballage has not been doing very well. I think Kyle Van Noy also forced a fumble on him. I don't know who reported that news. But from what I've read, Kalen Ballage not having a good training camp so far, and this is one of the lowlights for him. Eric Rowe has, continues his good play. At least he's getting turnovers still, coming off of year 2. So let's go into day 2 of training camp highlights. I enjoy this so much. This is like one of my favorite parts of the year. This and the draft and the offseason it's just fun to talk about. So this is day 2 highlights. This is from Cameron Wolf of ESPN. Defense won the day. Bobby McCain had an interception off of Ryan Fitzpatrick. Kyle Van Noy made a play popping the ball up. That's the same play that I was talking about with Kalen Ballage. He did that against Kalen Ballage. So again, not a great start for Kalen, coming off of a abysmal season where Ryan Fitzpatrick had more rushing yards than he did. In his defense, the offensive line was terrible, but we're not talking about Kalen Ballage right now. Let's talk about Bobby McCain. Bobby McCain playing safety, getting it done. That's all we need to hear about. As long as Bobby McCain can stay healthy and play half decent at that position, he's a veteran player. He's been under Brian Flores. This would be his second season. Just give us serviceable play. That's all we need you to do. Stay healthy and give us average safety play. That's all we need from him. We don't need coverage breakdowns, miscommunication that he's been a part of before when he's played safety. And we're not even going to get to the whole Bobby McCain thing. But it's nice to hear that Bobby McCain is playing well. And he picked off Kyle Van Noy, Ryan Fitzpatrick. And Kyle Van Noy's been making plays too. Obviously, forces a fumble, pops the ball out. All right, so the second highlight of day 2 of training camp, Devontae Parker mossed Byron Jones on a deep pass from Ryan Fitzpatrick. Jones forced an incomplete pass on the next try. So this is one of the things that I want to talk about too. This, not only the fact that Devontae Parker is having and this from all accounts has had, if you have a team stream, from all accounts, Devontae Parker is continuing what he, building off of what he did last year, going over 1,000 yards. And one of the things that I noticed when I was watching the 2015 Jets and when Chan Gailey had that success with Fitz, and that was the most successful year that he had Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. He really utilized Brandon's physicality. Now, I don't think Devontae Parker is as physical as Brandon Marshall, but he utilized his size, his physicality, and his ability to really win one-on-one matchups down the sideline a lot, especially in the red zone. And I think you're going to see a lot of that with Devontae Parker. Not to mention Devontae Parker said, this offense, you have a lot more freedom. And that's something that Shane talked about a lot, where he wants his receivers to really try new things. And, if this angle or if this leverage fits in this particular situation, even though you're supposed to run this specific route, you don't have to run it this specific way every single time. If you feel like, if I break it off here instead of breaking off there, if that's the right way and I feel like this is going to beat the corner, then I'm going to do it. And that did not exist in the previous offense with O'Shea, where it was very timing based. You had to cut here and there. It was very, very scripted. This, more freedom, more ad-libbing, all that stuff. So I really like that about this offense, and I think having more freedom as a route runner is a good thing, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to cause a bunch of chaos either. I think, if you think, okay, if I break this off now, or run this route a little bit quicker, or take my time on this route, and if you think that's what's going to get you open, I think that's just a better way of doing it. So it's nice to hear, Devontae Parker continuing his success, and I think the whole freedom thing, what Chan has been saying, within this offense is really going to help out Preston and Devontae Parker even more than they, help them progress to even higher things. All right, moving on to we're still on day 2. Yeah, we're still on day 2. So the third highlight of the day from day 2's of training camp's practice. Noah Igbinoghene keeps flashing. He had 2 pass breakups. And from everything we've heard about him, he has been the standout of the first-round picks so far, which is great news. Even though Tua hasn't gotten, and we'll get into that here in a second, but Tua hasn't gotten that much work as much as some of the other guys, because, Noah is taking first-team snaps right now with the defense, and he's playing well, which is just great news. I did not expect, I think the thing that, it just surprises me, I did not expect this from him. I think if you had to give me, I think maybe Austin Jackson I expected to have a little bit of a slow start, but Igbinoghene I think is surprising a lot of people right now, and I did not see this coming. I did not see him bursting onto the scene like he has, but it shouldn't come as a surprise. If you think about what he played in college, he was in a man press scheme, bump and run, very simple stuff in college, and he had to play Jerry Jeudy and Ruggs and all these other great receivers in the SEC, and he did very well when he had to do that, and that's one of the reasons he was drafted in the first round, and it's nice to see. And it's very surprising. This is why keeping low expectations for certain things, you kind of get a jolt out of it. It's nice to see, as a Dolphins fan. Did not expect this from him. Hopefully he can continue. And consistently, by the way. He's done this since, he's gotten his opportunity, which is good. And this is a little something that I saved to throw into the training camp segment. This comes from Omar Kelly. He tweeted, the Dolphins offensive lineman, and he has this picture if you guys want to go look this up if you haven't seen it. The Dolphins offensive linemen work after practice every single day. So after practice every single day, they do some extra work. And it seems that Eric Flowers has stepped up as the young group's leader. So it's really cool to hear that this, the offensive line group has taken initiative, and even after practice, they stay around to get a couple extra reps in together, and I think that should bode well for Dolphins fans and the product that we get on the field. Just really cool to see that. Okay, so this is a little update on Tua. This is a tweet right here from the Miami Herald. The Miami Herald reports that Tua Tagovailoa is 13 for 13 this week during team drills. So that includes the 3 days that he's played. So again, 13 out of 13 this week during team drills. And that's mostly throwing to second and third team players, including what the Palm Beach Posts called a medium post route to Kirk Merritt that was on, quote, a rope. So he's doing well too. Now, I've heard some conflicting reports about this, and we're going to read those later in the episode that, Brian Flores said, it's been a little up and down. I think that's just Brian Flores. I think that's just him being hard on him. I don't think that it has anything to do. Literally, that is a contradiction from what we just read. The man is 13 for 13. I don't know if this is the first 2 days, or I think this is all 3 days so far. And obviously, he's been throwing to second and third team players, and he had a little bit of a mini skinny post to Kirk Merritt that was on a rope. And from everything that we've heard from ball placement, because that's the big thing with Tua that everybody loves, it's been immaculate. And I think you can see that from him being 13 out of 13 so far in practice. So great news to hear about Tua's doing well. That's good news. Even though he's being brought along slowly, which is interesting, to me at least. And I don't think we have any. Let me make sure we don't have any day 3 stuff here. It doesn't seem that we do. I thought I did. Maybe I lost it, but I can't go back for it now. If there is day 3 stuff, I apologize that I missed. Let's see here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss it here. Apologize. Doesn't seem that I did. Yeah, I didn't miss anything from day 3, I guess. That kind of sucks. Maybe I lost it somewhere. Let me make sure. I just really want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, I guess I didn't miss it. That's unfortunate. Sorry to disappoint you guys, but maybe I forgot it or something like that. Forgot to save it or whatever. So let's get into this news. This next news story comes from Bleacher Report. Ryan Fitzpatrick is expected to be the Dolphins' starting quarterback over Tua Tagovailoa. It appears that Tua Tagovailoa will begin his rookie season on the bench. Mark Garafolo of NFL Network reported the Dolphins are expected to name Ryan Fitzpatrick their Week 1 starter. Brian Flores, this is, I think, from Mark Garafolo of NFL Network. He said, quote, Brian Flores comes from the Bill Belichick School of Competition, Garafolo said. He wouldn't declare a starting quarterback in his competition this early, but the expectation is you're looking at the starter in Ryan Fitzpatrick. By the way, it's a good thing that he brought that up. It is really early, okay? And I'm so happy that the offensive line is getting extra work in after practice. Really, and, you know, from everything we've heard from the quarterbacks, especially from Fitz, who's been here, obviously, from last year to this year, the most noticeable thing is the size up front. And I really think this is really pointing in a direction, and especially since Tua is playing well in camp, maybe he does start Week 1. And I think what Mark said there was, it is still early. I think if he's playing this well in training camp, the offensive line looks good. I don't see why not. We'll see how Austin Jackson plays, and it seems that he's kind of ahead right now in the tackle competition. We'll see how it all plays out, but so far it looks like it's going well, which is good. So let's get into this next news story. This comes from Bleacher Report. And this is what I was saying about the contradiction to what we read earlier about Tua. And this is the title of the article. Tua Tagovailoa making some good plays, some bad plays at Dolphins training camp. It's been a little bit of a mixed bag. Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores said Wednesday rookie quarterback Tua Tagovailoa has had an up and down start to his training camp. He said, quote, some good, some bad, some good throws, some good decisions, some throws that aren't so good, and some decisions that weren't so good. The Dolphins selected Tua Tagovailoa. We don't have to read any of this. Who cares? We know Tua's story. So I just wanted to really read that quote. To me, now, because I've read the other things where it's like, yeah, he's played pretty well up until this point. Now, how can you be 13 out of 13 and make bad decisions? Maybe he missed some throws that he could have made in terms of reads, not that the ball dropped or anything. But I feel like this is just him being hard on him. You don't want to say to this rookie, you're God. He just got here. I think this is more of a motivational thing than it is, or just Brian being Brian, than it is. And again, this is someone who's learned under Bill, and we've heard many times that how rough Bill was even on Tom Brady over the years. I don't think this is because Tua's playing actually bad. I think he just, he wants Tua to play to a certain expectation. I think that's what it is. Not necessarily he's actually playing bad to maybe someone like we've seen who struggled in camp before, like a Tannehill or even a Rosen. I don't think it's like that. I think this is more of a little bit of hard love going on here. So I wanted to read that in case people were like, well, in case I just did the podcast and people were like, oh, but Brian said this. I just think it's interesting that those are kind of conflicting reports there. I think we've actually covered... Nope, we have one more news story left. Almost 30 minutes of news, guys, which is awesome. We have one more news story left. Yannick Ngakoue. And I forgot to mention Kirk Merritt popping up on the highlights, which is nice. Tua throwing him a post on day 3. Maybe those two have a little bit of a rapport going in the near future. I like Kirk from what I've seen. I've started to watch a little bit. Big physical guy, really It really is. It reminds me like if Deebo Samuel played in, like a lower competition league. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that. Okay, so let's get into this next news story. Yannick Ngakoue. And this comes from NFL Network. And this is what it says. Either is going to be traded today or tomorrow. Reportedly, the Jaguars want a second-round pick. Now, since this report has gone up, we've heard a lot about, okay, well, the Dolphins have cap space. The Dolphins have an extra second-round pick. This seems to be a no-brainer. And I really wanted to talk about this. Would I want Yannick Ngakoue on the team? And I thought about this hard, and we've talked about this before, but there is a part of me that thinks, I think he would be swallowed up by the scheme a little bit because we play so many multiple fronts that does he fit his body type and the way he plays? Does he fit all of those? No, I don't think he does. I don't think you can stand him up and put him on the outside. I don't think you could put him on the inside on a 3-4 lineup. I don't think he's strong enough or big enough to do that. I think he's a good third down guy. I think he's a great 3 lineman. If you want to send extra secondary in there, 3 down lineman. I think he's a great 4-3 guy. I don't know if necessarily he's a great 3-4 guy, because if you did play 3-4, then you would have to put him on the outside and stand him up, and he has to set the edge. Now, can he do that? I don't really know. We've never really seen him do that. So, is he a scheme fit? I think you can make the argument that he's not, and I think that's why some people are a little bit hesitant. Like, okay, you want to, because if you trade this guy, if you trade for this guy and use a second round pick on this guy. Not only did you use a second-round pick on him, but you also have to extend him. He's going to be here a long time if you make this trade, if you make this commitment. And I think there's a little bit of hesitancy, especially within the fan base, to kind of accept that. It seems like, maybe this is a little bit of a half-baked thing. He does have 37 sacks over his career. He is one of the best young pass rushers in the league. He's only 25 years old. But at the same time, does he fit the scheme? Not necessarily. He's never really had to do anything like this before. With people like Melvin Ingram, who I've brought up before that being a great scheme fit, where that's what he does do. He moves inside. He moves outside. He does have his hand in the dirt. He is playing outside linebacker. He's played middle linebacker before, and he's done that very well. You've never really seen that from Yannick. And same thing with Jadeveon Clowney, who's done all of those things that I just said. So those guys are scheme fits. They fit the scheme perfectly. I don't know that Yannick is a scheme fit, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins didn't make this trade because of that. Because they're not in the business of doing that anymore. They don't see a big name and big stats and say, oh, come here and we'll make it work. They don't do that anymore. Do you fit our scheme? Do you fit the culture? That's kind of the things that this organization is built off of now, and I don't know necessarily that Yannick can do that. Now, maybe Brian, they obviously know way more than I do about football in the Dolphins building, and maybe they say, well, no, he does do these things well. I haven't seen that personally. I've never, so we'll see how that works. But I think there are positives to this. Some people have brought up the argument for the Dolphins to trade for him that, oh, listen, we don't even know if there's going to be a college football season you don't have this deep pool of guys to select from now because so many guys, college teams are dropping out due to the virus and so on and so forth. So you can make the argument that maybe using a draft pick on a guaranteed commodity that is going to give you good production is the right way to go. And I think you got to be a little bit more patient on that. Because you never know who's going to come free down the line. Melvin Ingram is coming straight. I mean, he's a free agent after the season. He's holding out right now. Maybe you can make a trade from him, who I think is a significantly better fit than Yannick Ngakoue. So I'm a little bit 50-50 on this. I could see it both ways. He adds great pass rush ability. He's by far, if we did sign him, the smallest guy that we've drafted/signed since Brian has gotten here. And he would be the least scheme fit guy since Brian has gotten here that they made the move. So if you're a Dolphins fan, hopefully I made an interesting argument to go against it so you're not so upset if they don't make the move. Because let's say Yannick goes to somewhere else and he has a lot of success. That does not mean the Dolphins made the wrong decision, because it just doesn't fit what they do. And I like that they just, it's more intelligent the decisions they make now than they did before, in my opinion. So, interesting news story. Tomorrow, if Yannick Ngakoue is a Dolphin, am I going to be mad about it? No. I would kind of be in wait and see mode because it is a big commitment. you're making to someone that might not fit your scheme. So let's move on to the fan Q&A, I think. Let's move on to the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. I don't think there was anything I wanted to talk about before the fan Q&A. Oh, there is something I wanted to talk about. I always forget, and then I remember immediately. Expect a ton of content. I'm going to do, I think I want to keep the videos under 5 minutes because I want them to be different than most things these people, you guys consume in terms of Dolphins content. I want them to be like under 5 minutes, and I do want to kind of do daily recaps of stuff that's going on, just in between podcasts. I think that'll be fun, and I'm going to do some, and I know people are like, you've tried it before if you've been around this channel before, but I'm going to go hard in the paint on some of the Madden stuff, with Madden 21 coming out very soon. I'm going to go hard in the paint on some of that stuff, so expect some of that stuff as well. Just a little bit more content, just a little bit more. And if you listen half an hour into someone who barely can read and talk, then it's okay to hear that for 2 seconds, you know what I mean? I'm just saying. If half an hour in, you've probably listened for a while. I hate to bring up stuff that is not related to anything in a video, because you didn't click on the video to hear me talk about that. But I think if you're 30 minutes in, I think it's okay. I think it's fine. All right. Let's get into the fan Q&A. Almost forgot what the heck I was doing for a second there. Alright, let's see here. Let's get it here. Let's get it going. Alright, this first question comes from M Black. He says, Skaggs, who is your surprise player of camp going to be? I think it's Noah Igbinoghene. I did not expect him to play this well up until this point. I don't know who I expected. I mean, Tua's playing well, but I don't know who I expected. I don't know why it's surprising me so much, but it is. I mean, I'm very surprised, especially him taking reps on the outside. And I've said this before. I think he fits more of the safety mold than he does the corner mode. But to hear that he's playing so well at that position opposite Byron Jones, if X does come back, what does the lineup look like at that point? Is going to be very interesting. And the fact that he's playing so strong, and you have X coming back, I mean, that's just the win-win for the Dolphins. This secondary is going to be really good. This next question comes from Cassius King. He says, which player do you expect to have a breakout season for us other than Matt Breida? I say Preston Williams. A breakout season. I would say Igbinoghene. The things that I've been hearing, he's going up against good receivers. He's going up against a good quarterback, I believe. A good scheme. For him to be this young with no rookie camp and playing against older players and playing well, I think is a surprising and great sign. I don't think people really can take into account, especially since receivers and especially secondary players, historically struggle early on. It's like the defensive tackle position as a rookie. It's like you don't really ever see rookie DTs play well. And for this guy to play this well, who really came out of nowhere. I mean, nobody expected the Dolphins to pick him. He was the end of the first round. I didn't have him on my radar. No one had him on their radar. And for him to be playing and getting off, and hopefully he can continue this, but and again, he's starting. He's taking first-team reps. I mean, I didn't expect this, so I'm going to go with Noah Igbinoghene. I think to hear, all the positive things, I'm going with Igbinoghene. I think it's going to be pretty surprising. This next question comes from Beef. He says, Skaggs, the question I had about Ricky Williams got me thinking. With the way the Dolphins are handling things, do you think the current Miami Dolphins organization is handling this team better than it did in previous seasons under Flores, Greer, and Ross? Also, okay, this is a long one. He says, hold on, I gotta read more here. He says, I'm gonna have to restart because the thing I had to press read more. Sorry, guys. Listen, bear with me. I'm not the best, all right, but you stick with me. He says, the question I had about The question I had about Ricky Williams got me thinking. With the way the Dolphins are handling things, do you think the current Miami Dolphins organization is handling this team better than it did in previous seasons under Flores and Greer? See, you confused me when you said previous seasons. I understand I get what you're saying now, though. I'm not going to confuse myself again. I understand what you're saying. Previous seasons under Flores, Greer, and Ross. Also, does it make you very nervous if the Dolphins don't do well this season? Probably Flores and Greer will be gone, and this rebuild will be for nothing. No, if they don't do like good, I mean, they have to do better than they did last year, and I know they will. But if they don't, let's say they don't get the 7th seed, but they had a really good year. Like, statistically, they were in a lot of close games. Maybe some injuries got in the way. If that happens, then I'm not going to be too concerned. As long as I see improvement, that's all that I care about. And your other question is... Okay, so... Do I think if the Dolphins... This current regime had Ricky Williams and some of the defensive players that they had in the early 2000s, would it have ended differently? Yes, it definitely would have ended differently. First of all, there would have been a way bigger emphasis on a quarterback. I don't understand really what happened in that era. I really don't. I think it was a lot of incompetence because the Dolphins had so many opportunities to pick great quarterbacks. People bring up the Brees situation all the time, but they could have picked Aaron Rodgers in the draft easily, but they picked Ronnie Brown instead, right? That's probably, to me, that's bigger than the Drew Brees thing. If they just put a bigger emphasis on quarterbacks, who knows what that era would have been like. I mean, you think about Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas, some of the guys even in the late 90s to the early Sam Madison, Patrick Surtain, just there were so many good players, Bowen, all of those guys. I mean, I think if it was handled differently, that team could have been something pretty good, and better than it was, at least. And I think that regime would have put more of an emphasis on the quarterback. This next question comes from SM. He says, break down Gary Jennings at slot with Parker and Preston Williams on the outside. I think Gary Jennings, bigger, faster guy. I don't know if he fits the slot position. I think Isaiah Ford would fit that position more. I think with someone like Gary Jennings, it's just kind of hard for me to imagine that. Because his skill set's more outside than it is inside. He's very athletic. I think if you did put him on the inside, I think here's what you have. You have a very athletic, big, physical receiver who you would hope would get the route running down, but has great run after the catch ability. Really puts defenses in bad spots because of his speed and his athleticism. So I think those are some of the positives there. And then obviously if you have Preston and the way the scheme works, if you have Preston and Devontae Parker and you have someone who's viable in the slot, it really opens up the middle of the field. So they have a little bit more room in terms of run after the catch, because if you have to double Devontae Parker, who's on the outside, and you got Preston Williams on the outside, who's also a dominant force on the other side, I think it softens the middle up a lot, and especially if you can run the football, dude. That definitely opens up the middle of the field. So I think that also happens as well. This next question comes from Bad Bandit. He says, hey, Skaggs, what position groups do you think the Dolphins will target in next year's draft? Or do you think they will go BPA? What positions do I think they'll target? I mean, it's hard to tell, but I would say safety would be one of them. If things don't go well, free safety. O-line, we'll see how that works. I would say probably some... I don't know. I don't know what they would target. It really depends on how things go. Maybe some linebacker depth. Maybe a little bit more of a versatile player on the edge. It's get a little bit more pass rush prowess, but again, I think with some of the moves that they made, they covered that. I don't know. That's a tough question to answer. I would say free safety, maybe slot receiver. I think those are the two that come to mind the most, I would say. Even though Isaiah Ford and some of those other guys have a really good chance of being pretty good. This next question comes from Mark. He says, what's up, Skaggs? How do you feel about our chances of beating the Pats week 1? Also, do you think the Jets or Pats will be last place in the AFC East? The Jets will be last place in the AFC East this year. Clearly, the Jets are the worst team and one of the worst teams in the league. They just are. People forget. Let me reiterate something. They lost their number one receiver, Robbie Anderson. Okay, they lost Jamal Adams, who was their best player. Okay, they didn't have much other than those guys. You know, they did get Mekhi Becton in the draft to help that offensive line out. Who knows if he's going to be good? You know, he's a really good prospect. Don't get me wrong, but we don't know that. And Sam has no one to throw to. If you can make an argument that the Dolphins and Patriots have one of the top 5 secondaries in the NFL, okay? And who the heck are they gonna what are they going to do? And I feel like they're what positional group? What the heck is going on there? They just suck. I don't see that working out too well, in my opinion. And if it does, it would have to be young players. Like I can't remember the guy that they drafted out of Baylor, Denzel Mims, and they got Ashton Davis from I think Cal, right? So if it does do better than I think, if they do better than I think, it's gonna have to be a really good rookie class. But that's what it's gonna have to be because their veteran players aren't very good. So yeah, I would say the Jets are definitely finishing dead last. This next question comes from Bad Bandit. Not to mention that their head coach is just getting literally just ran through the ringer, for God's sakes. I mean, literally, what has not been said negatively about Adam Gase to this point? This next question comes from Bad Bandit. He says, "Hey Skaggs, what do you think the strength of the O-line will be? Run blocking or pass blocking? Run blocking. I think it's going to be run blocking. This team, I think we have over 1,000 pounds of offensive linemen up front. This team is a big, physical offensive line. And that's what Eric Flowers did best when he was in Washington, was just move people in the run game. So I'm going to say run blocking. This next question comes from SM. He says, when would you insert Tua as the starter? If the O-line is solid, I say after the bye, we happen to play the exact same team, if I'm not mistaken, 3 weeks to prepare for a team should help a rookie. I think you're talking about the Jets. I don't think that's a smart idea to be like, okay, this is when it should happen. Just see how things play out. If things don't go well, and I don't think that if you really look at the offense, and let's just say the offensive line is doing well, how does Ryan Fitzpatrick? It would have to be him playing bad. How does that offense not succeed? At least it has to succeed because there's too many good things going for it. I mean, you have 2 talented running backs now, better offensive line. You got a tight end, Mike Gesicki, who's a good receiving tight end. You got 2 really good receivers on the outside. The slot is a little bit of a mystery, but you got Jakeem Grant, who can be a little bit of a gadget guy and a one-play touchdown guy. And the amount of speed that they have on that offense is ridiculous. With Breida, Grant, even Devontae Parker, who's a 4-3 guy. Mike Gesicki's a 4-5 guy as a tight end. I mean, they have a lot of speed on that offense. I don't see, unless the offensive line is really bad, I don't see any room for failure there. And if Fitz plays bad, and let's say things are going well on the offensive line, then it's on him. So then I think that's when you make that change. But I don't see things going bad for Fitz as the starter of the team. So I don't think the Dolphins are going to ever be like, oh, this is probably when it's going to happen. Or even me, because if things go well, then there's no reason to pull him. And what the interesting thing to me is right now as things stand is what does this quarterback battle look like at the end of training camp? Because all 3 of them are playing well. When is the last time in maybe the history of the team that we've had 3 quarterbacks that are having really good camps so far? That's never happened before. So I'm excited to see where that goes. This next question comes from Beef. He says, do you think the team will be affected if the players in their very empty stadium? Do you think the team... He said teams, if I could read. He says, do you think the teams will be affected if they played... will they be affected in empty... Sorry, dogs are barking. I got kind of distracted there. Will teams be affected in empty stadiums? No. I think home field advantage... First of all, this is what's not cool. Some teams have home field crowds and some teams don't. That's not okay. The commissioner should be like, no, that's not happening. Nobody has fans in their stadium. That's what should happen. But I've heard that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have fans in their stadiums and stuff. It's like that's not fair to other people. in the league. And again, we've talked about this before, and I'm so happy that things are actually going pretty smoothly with like nobody's even talking about that, which is hilarious. Like everybody was down on the NFL for even trying this, and now that it actually is happening and it's going so smoothly, I don't hear enough about that. I feel like well, hey guys, it's actually been going pretty well, at least so far. But yeah, I don't have an issue with. I think home teams still have an advantage because they can stay at home and practice. They don't have to get on an airplane. I think that's an advantage in itself. But I think the big advantage, and what would not be fair, is if certain teams get home field advantage and certain teams don't. I mean, how stupid is that? So, oh, yeah, but the Chiefs have fans. It's like, oh, that's cool. And it sucks that we live in Miami and we have maybe a little bit higher of a infected population compared to someone in the Midwest that doesn't. So it doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense to me. That should not be allowed. This next question comes from SM. He says, when is it safe to purchase game tickets? That's a great question. I don't know. I know the Dolphins. I mean, there's been reports that we might not even play in Hard Rock Stadium in certain weeks. So I wouldn't do that at all. I wouldn't do that at all. I think it's such a fluid situation. It could look good one week and the next week it's bad. So I don't know how that's gonna work. As Dolphins fans, I would be very cautious if I were you. This next question comes from Beef. He says, if anyone were to win the Super Bowl this year, do you think they would disqualify it because of the virus? Closed stadiums and probably a shortened season. No. I hate that argument that, no. Everybody has to play in the same situation. Now, hey, so apparently the Chiefs don't have to play on the same playing field that we all do. Now, that's a different conversation. But if let's say everybody has to play in the same empty stadiums, everybody's got to deal with the stupid stuff that's happening. I apologize for the dogs. There's nothing I can do about it. Unless I kill them. But anyway, what was I saying? I'm getting way too distracted right now. What was I even talking about? Hold on, let me read. I have to reread this question now. Oh man. Okay, so would the Super Bowl be disqualified for all this? I mean, like I said, depending on how things are treated, I don't think so. And they did the same thing for the NBA finals. Like, oh, does this even count? It's like, yeah, it counts. Everybody's still playing each other, right? Everybody's still playing in the same circumstances. The best team will still win. It doesn't matter if the season. Listen, we used to play. The season used to be shorter in the 70s. For a long time. I mean, the season, and then obviously they expanded it. So no, I don't think did those Super Bowls not count? No, obviously they do count. So, no, I would say no. I think it still counts. I think it's still a Super Bowl win. If you can win the Super Bowl, you can win the Super Bowl. And I don't think let's say whoever wins the Super Bowl this year, and like, well, if they played in a normal season, they wouldn't have. I don't believe that. I think that team still would have won the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Whoever does win it, it's going to be interesting. I mean, how does that work? Think about that for a second. How does the Super Bowl work in the state of things that are now? Like, how does that feel? And is there a halftime show? And how does that work? That's going to be very weird. And not having fans first of all, not having fans in baseball stadiums and basketball stadiums. That's going to be weird. And I thought, really? In a regular season? That's going to be weird. In a regular season basketball game where barely there's nobody in the stadium. And so, same thing with baseball. And that has nothing to do with they don't have, the MLB or NBA struggle. Of course they're not struggling. Of course, and I love the NBA. I love, I don't watch baseball that much, but I still appreciate it. It has nothing to do with that. But there's only 16 games in an NFL season. So every NFL game, depending on how... Obviously, if you have a terrible team, nobody's showing up. But if you have a good fan base and a good team, every week it's loud. Okay? So that's going to be the biggest, I think, out of any sport. That probably soccer. Like, having no fans in the stadiums, that's going to be weird. That's actually going to be different, in my opinion. Because of the deafening sound. I mean, even on third down, we all know that sound. It's like ingrained in your brain, so it's going to be different. That's going to be that's just a completely That's a bigger difference than not having someone in an NBA game and someone in a baseball game who don't have packed stadiums every single week like the NFL does. That's just different. Especially like when people say that about a regular season. I mean, come on, guys. Now, playoffs is a different story. But this, in a regular season game, it's going to be weird the entire year. I mean, that's actually going to be weird. So, yeah, just went on a little rant there. Anyway, that's it, guys. For this episode, I think we covered everything. I must have lost the day 3 stuff. I apologize for that, and look forward to more stuff out, and hopefully I support that, and hopefully I support this show that we've been doing for a long time now. It's been very weird. Sometimes I feel like, man, we were really on the fringe here because we were doing this stuff before a lot of other people were doing it, and it's crazy, and I'm happy about it that we have this much content out for Dolphins fans. I think it's cool. I like. That this, because usually, and before this, I would say like 2 years ago, there was nothing. So it's nice to have that as fans and as fan base. Anyway, I'm Scax3. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.